I want to start off by asking, is there anyone who mines in the room right now? Anyone? We got 1, 2, 3, no. Okay. So anyone who's interested in mining? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So I start out by asking you, Nathaniel, what advice would you give to someone who is interested in mining and wanting to get involved more?
All right, so the way we always talk because of time, Nathaniel, by the way. So, quick intro for myself. I work for Bitcoin, been working there for 5 years. I first started the company, doing marketing, then I helped out with sales. So, like first for products, probably first meeting our big customers, and going to events, talking to like medium, small customers, and explaining how mining works. Like in the company, I started this mining 101 series just to educate people also on how to begin mining. How to turn your hard-earned cryptocurrency back into fiat, all those things. So, to answer your question, like, what advice would I give people who want to start into mining? Of course, number one, you need to check first is how cheap your electricity is, because of course that's one of the biggest factors when you're going to mining. If your price for electricity is too high, then it becomes quite difficult, especially when newer models come out. Because of course, when you buy Bitcoin's products, at least, or any miners out in the market, you always have to consider like the mining profitability, your ROI, how long it takes to earn back the profits. So I think the biggest factor and the most basic question you need to check out first is how much does electricity cost in your area, or you have access to cheap power somehow in another place by getting your contacts or having having people in the same space that you can advise. So I think if you're just beginning mining, that's the most basic step that you need to do.
Thank you. So I want to say that proof of work and proof of stake are 2 very different systems, and I think more people need to appreciate that and to understand that proof of stake is not a substitute for proof of work. They each have their utility, and on the end of Nervos, we've chosen to build a blockchain secured by proof of work so that it can be decentralized and ownerless and very resilient and not subject to any of the kind of concerns that people may have, with proof of stake. Bitcoin's run for almost 15 years now without any problems, and for us, that's an important consideration. So now I want to pass the mic to Chango to discuss your views on proof of work versus proof of stake.
Thank you. If you've been paying attention to Twitter, there have been some what they call nano promoters that talk about the trade-offs of proof of work and some of those pitfalls, and they mistakenly argue that if the price of Bitcoin ever exceeds the cost of mining for the network, then somehow that opens the network up to 51% attacks, which isn't really true because we're talking about hash power here. The security of a proof of work network is denominated in hash power, not in dollars, like proof of stake is. That's an important distinction to know. I work on a crypto protocol called Cosmos, and
am a proof of stake proponent, but not necessarily a maximalist, thinking that, well, everything should be on proof of stake, and that proof of stake is a drop-in replacement for proof of work, which is not. They both have different strengths for different things. Proof of work offers the greatest amount of censorship resistance and decentralization properties that you can't find with proof of stake, but in proof of stake, you can achieve higher scalability, and you could achieve finality for different applications that need less critical infrastructure that requires censorship resistance.
Okay, I want to give Willis the chance. Is there anything you want to add to this discussion, debate? I know you guys run some proof of stake infrastructure, and then you're here from the Handshake community, so maybe you have some insights, about this landscape.
Well, like Chango, I'm actually, we're involved in the Cosmos ecosystem as well. We have run a couple of validators, and proof of stake definitely has its merit. Proof of work, I think you definitely had a very, I think it's very valid to say that, Bitcoin's been running for the last 15 years.
I have some strong views about what I think blockchain should do for our world, and I think I'll give everyone else the ability to share, and then I'll share mine. So if you want to take that, I know you kind of got gypped on the last question. So what should what should a blockchain do for our world? What is your vision there?
Well, thank you. In regards to, what a blockchain should do for our world, ideologically, I believe that blockchain really has the potential to change a lot of things. It already is. For me, the biggest thing, this isn't something that's often talked about, but for me, it's always been a huge portion of the world is unbanked, and this is definitely a means to help mitigate that. And there's just so much utility across all of the different types of consensus mechanisms. So it's not, I don't believe that there's any one specific, like I'm not a maximalist on any of these, we're talking about proof of stake and proof of work, but there's proof of space time, there's proof of coverage, there's all different kinds, and they each have their merit. But proof of work is definitely the most tried and true. And I believe that blockchain really does have the potential to change a lot in this world for sure.
Yeah, I do agree that proof of work is because we also produce miners for, of course, all proof of work protocols. So I do believe in POW is like really the way to go moving to the future. That's why even our company, we're very big supporters for this. We work with a lot of POW organization communities and DAOs just to promote it moving to the future. And of course, like for blockchain technology, I really do believe that this is like the technology that will innovate the world into the future. It integrates with so many types of businesses in the markets. Like in the future, I think we'll be seeing more practical applications as well. Now like even, everyone is here attending Consensus. I'm sure everybody noticed like every time you attend Consensus every year or other events, there's always new topics, new businesses coming out. So I just see like there's a lot of change, and it's just very interesting always being in this industry. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess one thing to add, if it wasn't obvious to some members in the audience here, is that the security model of proof of stake is retroactive rather than preemptive, whereas in proof of work, it costs money in order to create a block, whereas, and if it turns out that the block, if you did something bad, like equivocate or like double sign, then you have spent all this money creating that block. And so why would you? In proof of stake, it's you put up collateral that could be slashed later on if it is found that you did something bad. And so that's the biggest difference.
You virtualize that whole process, but then it becomes kind of like a closed loop. Like you're
perpetual motion.
Well said. Okay. I'll say that from my end, a blockchain should be a widely verifiable system, and I think that this is a difference that you get with proof of work, that you can go back and verify all of the history of Bitcoin's proof of work, literally in a minute with your phone. And from our perspective, like a blockchain needs to be a place where we can build new systems like identity and security for smart contract systems. And you really need a stable base that proof of work provides. And I want to bring up the topic now of, proof of work used to be just uniformly bad. Everyone just said, proof of work is terrible for the environment. This is useless computation. There's really nothing good that can come from it. We just know it's a waste of energy. And being that we're in Texas, I know there's been a lot of work recently that has discovered that proof of work mining can have utility to energy infrastructure and renewable capacity, things like that. Does anyone want to chime in on what they've seen?
This is my field. Yeah, so actually because we produce most of the miners in the industry, right? And we work with most of the largest mining companies in the world. So to answer your question, like for renewable energy, I believe that mining really does promote it because there are a lot of projects worldwide that need to be funded. But when you add mining into the picture, more projects get funded because they know that it could be monetized in a way. You have these examples such as flaring. So instead of wasting the gas, you could actually use it for mining. So it creates extra profit for these energy providers. And not only that, like I think there's a good case scenario for in the US where you have these orphan wells. So you could actually, I think US has over like maybe 10,000 orphan wells. So you could actually put mining into this picture where, you mine in a certain location. Once the well's dried up, then you close it. But it's actually,
leaving those wells in the area would actually pollute the environment. So, mining actually has a lot of use cases, and over the long term, especially in Texas, it could grow more renewable energy. And recently, miners have been working with with energy providers and suppliers as well. So, for example, in Texas, when they actually need the energy, miners would actually just be okay just to turn off their energy and provide it to the city when it's needed. And then when there's a surplus of energy, then that's when they could use mining. So they actually improve utilization of energy in the sector. So, mining actually, moving forward will be integrated more into society, and we could see more cases like these happening.
But can I just ask the audience, how many of you think that cat videos are useful? Well, all right, fair enough. They are. I mean,
You're dealing with
dopamine
human
hits.
beings. Like if you were to ask like a cat, does a cat think that a cat video is utility? I would
It
say
is
probably
true,
not,
and
but
that's
human
worth
beings,
more than anything.
yeah. So
But did you know that to serve up cat videos for 1 month to, everyone on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, that the amount of energy costs more than running the Bitcoin network for an entire year?
I'm shocked.
Is that, what would you say to that? Is proof of work wasteful then? Put into that context? Sorry.
It depends on if
I'm
you
just
think
gonna,
it's a scam or not.
right now.
I think that's the. It speaks a lot to energy usage really displays our priorities as a society. I think all the cars circling around outside are testaments of that as well. It's definitely a complicated question. I think we've kind of seeded the room with a number of things. So I'd hope that somebody could help us out with some questions to kind of get some audience participation in the material we're discussing here. Who's gonna go? Who's gonna go?
Are you guys all familiar with Handshake?
Yeah, I guess we could introduce Handshake and Nervos. I think maybe that's good. Yeah, go. You want to?
Yeah.
Go.
I mean, news and current events is that ICANN just came out with a proposal saying that, ICANN and VeriSign is the company that owns .com, biggest company in DNS. So they came out with a proposal that says, okay, well, governments can seize domain names. So how many of you actually thought of domain names as like a free speech platform? Like what happens if a government could just seize Amazon.com or Twitter.com or whatever website you run?
You never had it to begin with.
Yeah. Just like, if you're banking with someone and the government just seizes your money, is that really your money? That was the whole value proposition that Bitcoin presented. So Handshake says you can own your own domain and no government can seize it.
Okay, we have a question in the back. So the question is, how is Handshake different from Fleek? Are you familiar with Fleek?
No, I've never heard of that.
Okay. Noel, do you want to come up here and join the panel? Come. No, it's all. There you go. I like the round of applause for Noel.
I don't have anything else.
Oh, I thought that you came all the way up here. Tell us more about Handshake. Why are you excited about Handshake? Why are you invested in Handshake for your, with your time and your energy?
Yeah. For Handshake, why I'm so passionate about it is, Satoshi's second suggested use case for blockchain.
Yes.
Does anybody know what he had recommended?
Namecoin.
Namecoin, exactly. That was the second, basically the first altcoin.
So
and
the
basically
Bitcoin
it said
maxis are wrong.
DNS on blockchain. Satoshi said it himself.
Yes.
So I don't know about all these.
The Lord and Savior
newbie
himself said
maximalists
it.
have been
Yeah.
getting into Bitcoin over the past couple of years, but Satoshi had actually recommended, or he suggested, DNS on blockchain. Of course, we had Namecoin was the first attempt, right? And Handshake, it was a several-year process. It launched in February 2020 and took, learned from Namecoin and all these other attempts. And to me, is the best attempt that we have to actually have a decentralized web that we all use today. So Handshake is DNS on blockchain. We're trying to decentralize the DNS roots into the web. What the hell does that mean?
Yes.
Chango brought up this archaic word called ICANN. Okay, so in the 90s, the US government, was kind of like the gatekeeper for the web, right? But then they handed over the keys to this nonprofit called ICANN in the late 90s. And they're okay. But there's a lot of corruption that goes on behind closed doors. And why in 2023 do we have to rely on a single entity for the web to run? They can shut, if the government came to them, as Chango said, it's a proposal right now for .net domains to be seized. It's actually going to be going before the ICANN, like in their next meeting in June or July, right? And so why do we have to put up with that? We see all this kind of censorship going on over the years. Right now, it's Bitcoin's time to shine. We're seeing all these banks collapsing, right? Left and right. We just had another one today, right? What, in the First Republic? But then there's going to be a chance in the future. What I think is going to be the next thing is freedom of speech, censorship, be able to, own your name, own your digital identity online. It's basically real estate in the digital world. Just how we have property rights here in Texas and elsewhere around the world, we're going to have property rights online, and that's what Handshake is, and that's why I'm so passionate about it.
That's great. Round of applause, please. Okay. Willis, would you like to tell us more about Dweb Technologies and what you guys do?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Going after Noel there. Everything he said it was amazing. And honestly, what Chango was talking about in regards to the .net domains being seized, that's very significant. And all, these domains are just being leased out to you right now. And I know this isn't about Dweb Technologies, but I just wanted to really emphasize that digital identity, digital ownership, these are the most important things. I feel like the coming years, that's going to be really, really relevant. And the fact that there's legislation right now, that's kind of a canary in the coal mine, so to speak. So that's why Handshake is all the more important now. In regards to Dweb Tech, we're kind of, we're a small company in San Antonio that was founded in 2020, and we basically, our idea, the CEO of the company he reached out to me and he said, when he got out of the military, the internet, I've seen the backside of the internet. He worked for the FBI, the NSA, all of these different things. And there's so many flaws. There's so many, security vulnerabilities. And we wanted to focus really on infrastructure. So we kind of got involved in things like Helium with proof of coverage with the internet, and then Filecoin with, proof of space-time and decentralized cloud storage ecosystems. And then that's kind of how we got into Handshake as well, because when we're thinking about the concept of what does a true DWeb or a Web3 looks like, you're going to need something like Handshake, you're going to need decentralized cloud storage, you're going to need all of these different things. And, we also validate on Cosmos because there's a lot of really interesting Cosmos projects, and interoperability is really important. And I think, Cosmos does that really well. But, that's kind of what we do. And I just really want to emphasize everything Noel said and Chango said. That's really why we believe in Handshake as well.
Thanks, Willis. So I realized we talked about Handshake. I should also introduce Nervos so everyone knows. So I think that there's a good amount of philosophical alignment in the room. I think, as far as like the ideals of the Handshake project being, mined through proof of work and being a community-driven endeavor, very much, the same there. And our idea is also to use the blockchain for novel things, things like identity, NFTs, the security of, smart contract systems. We're heavily inspired by the ethos and the architecture of Bitcoin, but we want to generalize that so we can do more of the exciting things that people are seeing now with smart contract systems. And we have plenty of swag over there. Happy to answer any questions. It's quite a complicated endeavor. And I'll open the floor again. Does anyone have any questions?
I've got a question.
All right.
What is the difference between Handshake and ENS and unstoppable domains? Like, why is Handshake the answer and not those other ones? What strange, unique properties does it have?
Well, I think that they all have their own merit, but Handshake is definitely unique in regards to the fact that you can actually get like TLDs and SLDs and access to that. And I'm not sure what you're specifically looking for in regards to the.
Well, when you say you're looking for solutions for the Dweb stack, why is Handshake the DNS answer? When there's comparable naming services like ENS Unstoppable.
So, I mean, there definitely are, and that's a part of why we're here talking about proof of work and things like that. That's one big factor is that, Handshake is proof of work, and, the halvening is coming up here soon, and we believe that it's very resistant. And when you look at a project with blockchain, for us, first principles, it's, what's the team behind it and things like that. And the fact that the people that were behind Handshake in general, they were behind the Lightning Network, like early adopters with Bitcoin, involved in Bitcoin, all of these things. So for us, that's one of the big reasons why we, navigated more towards Handshake. To be honest, we're kind of involved in a lot, so sometimes it's a bit overwhelming to totally keep up to date with all of the different competition. But I think Handshake inherently is much more interesting than, well, I wouldn't say much more interesting, but it's definitely between ENS and HNS. They're definitely they both have their merits, but I think that for us, we're kind of happy with where we're at with Handshake.
I'll try to demonstrate it. So who in this room runs an Ethereum node? Okay. Who in this room runs a Bitcoin node? One person. Okay. So I feel the need to inform you that I have no problem making the statement that every one of the people in this room could run a Bitcoin node on their laptop. I can't say the same thing about Ethereum. And every one of us in this room could run a Handshake node on our laptops. And to me, it's really a difference in vision for the network. Almost every smart contract platform that's out there is the vision is that the nodes run in data centers or on dedicated consumer hardware that is relatively high spec. It's not meant to be just run by users of the system casually because, as somebody, I think as Vitalik said, that idea of users validating everything is a mountain man fantasy, which is fair. We can all have our opinions. But when it comes to actually using this system, say to know if the data that you're getting from a Handshake node is accurate, it's much easier to verify that information compared to verifying something from the Ethereum network. And when we're talking about things that are as vital as the topics that we've been discussing, that knowledge that you could actually verify the information that you're getting becomes very important when we're operating at this level. And I think Handshake is just a vision for a network much more like Bitcoin than Ethereum. They're just very different. There's different trade-offs.
Yeah, to put it materially, if you spin up your laptop right now, spin up a Bitcoin node, it could take you like half a day to run a light node, an SPV node. And with Ethereum, it's going to take you multiple days with something called fast sync, so to go to the chain tip, which means you don't actually verify everything that's gone up to the chain tip to this point in time. So what happens with Ethereum is everyone that runs an application on Ethereum, it's like a smart contract, needs to rely on a centralized provider that does the heavy lifting for you of verifying, and that's Infura, or it's Alchemy.
Or any other number of companies people have never heard of.
Right. Right. So these are the these are the material centralized choke points that network depends on. And so it's kind of not perfectly honest to say, oh, this is a completely decentralized network, because, okay, it relies on one company. If the government takes down Infura, that's, well, 99% of the decentralized applications
Or if you
on
live
Ethereum.
in Iran or Venezuela, they don't have to. They just, black out certain places.
Damn.
Sorry, I feel like I cut you off. Are you still?
Oh, done.
I'm sorry. Okay, so I think that pretty much does it here. Again, I'll open the floor for any questions. Any questions? I got a question. Yes. Okay. Okay, so the question is, what are the thoughts about El Salvador using, I guess, geothermal energy would be the right term, energy from volcanoes to mine Bitcoin? I will pass it to Nathaniel.
Yeah, so actually last year I met with the Minister of Economics from El Salvador. So actually, because their country has so many, volcanoes, they actually try to use this energy because, of course, as I mentioned a while ago, like in the U.S. when you're using natural gas, you have to do flaring. So that's actually wasted energy. So I think for El Salvador as well, they actually have started developing and they have plants using geothermal energy. But then, of course, they also want to try to, invest in new things to branch out their industry. That's why they're going into, blockchain. They wanted to build like this Bitcoin city, which I'm sure they're still, which is an ongoing project. And in terms of mining, yes, I think it's a good idea. It's another use of renewable energy, because I think globally, people, you have wind, solar. I think now even the US they're starting to use all sorts of renewable energy just to begin mining, because of course it's still, if you have access to cheap energy, then mining becomes quite profitable. So I think even other countries also in South America have started getting into mining. Energy providers, want to jump into mining as well because they see the profitability in it. They see the future into Bitcoin, into cryptocurrency, into blockchain. That's why they're all jumping into this space.
Anything to add? No. Yeah. Is there any competing use of the energy of the volcano?
Yeah. So it's basically like if you have wind farm, right? So basically, you're harnessing the energy. Of course, you need to convert the energy as well to different voltages. So, just in case that they don't want to use the energy, they could always use it to power cities, which I'm sure they're already doing now. They're just trying to use part of their energy just to begin Bitcoin mining.
When you met in El Salvador, is there anything else that they would use that energy for that they were thinking about?
Unfortunately, I didn't go to El Salvador. I just met with them here. But they didn't really mention that. But normally, for these energy providers, you have the option to, of course, once you get the energy to set back to the grid. So, there are many, I'm sure they're not developing this just mainly for Bitcoin. So it's actually, of course, number one, to power the city. Then part of the energy would go into mining, because of course, it still creates some revenue. The same can be said for energy providers. So, when they have a surplus of energy, they would use it for Bitcoin mining. And then when the city, during daytime when everybody's using energy for work, then they'd funnel the energy for that sector.
You have one more question? Yeah, what is flaring? Does anyone want to take this? Back to Nathaniel.
Yeah. So normally, when you're using natural gas, right? Sometimes you have, again, excess energy. So what they do is that because they have too much gas, they just burn it. So I don't know if you've seen images before, you just see tubes with fire coming out. So that's flaring because they just got to get rid of it because there's too much of it. So when there's too much or an excess of renewable energy, sometimes it just goes to waste. Like a scenario, for example, in Texas, there's so much solar in Texas, but then I remember one of the biggest issues with harnessing this solar energy is that number one, it's hard to store it, and it's hard to transport it to different cities. So normally the renewable energy that's produced here would stay in Texas, because to bring it to a different state or to store it for a long period of time is so expensive, and you need the infrastructure and the technology to do it. So just like flaring, if you have excess natural gas, they just burn it. So that's when Bitcoin mining comes in, where you don't waste energy. You, instead of wasting it, you turn it into as they say, digital gold.
Yeah, Bitcoin has this interesting property of creating economics where they didn't exist before. So, for example, natural gas is a byproduct of drilling. So the most economic thing to do previously was just burn it, and that's what you could do. Or if you had natural gas, coming off of or methane coming off of a landfill, it just goes off into the atmosphere. But with Bitcoin, you can actually, put that through a generator and use it. I think one of the most mind-bending stories I've heard was about a environmental waste site in Pennsylvania where they just had a whole bunch of coal ash, and it would cost billions of dollars to clean that up. And no government's going to fund it. No private company's just going to go into debt for billions of dollars to clean up a waste site. But some people said, just give us the waste site and we'll clean it up. And what they did is they just burnt all the coal to mine Bitcoin, which is not a perfect answer by any means. I'm not justifying just burning coal that's sitting on the ground. But the point is it's creating these economics that just didn't exist before. And this is something we can use in our world to achieve goals that are in our collective interest. And that gets into a much bigger conversation around being green and sustainability and how we ensure that we have a planet that's conducive to our survival. But I think the key insight is that Bitcoin is so much more multidimensional than the story was told for most of its life. And we're just now getting to the point of actually being able to realize what that means and to see enterprises built around that and really be able to make use of that and have the discussion around what do we do with this, now that we know about it.
And this is purely theoretical, but if you were a village in Africa with no outside sources of income, but you were next to, I don't know, a waterfall, maybe you could harness that and start mining Bitcoin with just the energy of that and, I don't know, a laptop and internet. That's how easy it is to participate in the network compared to proof of stake where, to get into the active set of validators, you may need to put up 32 ETH or something that's normally out of bounds for a normal person. Definitely not somebody in Africa, but something like this is.
Okay, so I want to thank everyone for coming out. And again, there's swag over here. Please, help me in a round of applause for our speakers.